Well, the dichotomy of social media. Like, if you're not on it, then do you really exist? Like, everyone's got that friend that's not on social media, right? Like,
Yeah, I got a couple.
yeah. And when something got, like, it's hard to coordinate with things. Like, I took Facebook off my phone, mainly because I just wasn't serving me to sit on Facebook for stretches of time. It just starts scrolling through stuff. But you lose some connections. Like, I don't see what's going on with the gym, for an example. Like, that was my main source of information for the jiu-jitsu gym, was through Facebook.
Right, the group.
Right. And if you're not on it, you don't kind of know what's going on.
Right.
But at the same time, if you disconnect it and you don't look at it for 2 weeks, if nothing drastic's happening, it's like you don't need to check it every day. It's not like really a whole lot's going on. But I've been struggling with that. Like, a friend of mine told me LinkedIn's starting to become the new Twitter in a way. Like, there's a lot of noise. People are moving away from Twitter. We've got AI tools that can basically generate content on scale. Doesn't mean it's all good content, but I found LinkedIn in the last couple, and LinkedIn's always been a strong channel for me. I sell B2B SaaS SEO services.
Yeah, you're pretty active on there.
I struggle with it though, because I don't like posting a lot of stuff. There's an ego bruise, if you will, when nothing gets engaged with. Like,
right.
you think it's great. You've been like mulling it over. You took all this time to craft it together. You've got this like big story going. You edit it 7 million times, and then you schedule it for when you think it's going to be popular, and then you wake up in the morning, and an hour later you check it, and crickets. Like, you just threw something out the air.
Got a couple impressions.
Yeah, and like nobody's engaging with it. Like, that to me, if somebody sees it, it's just almost an accident. Like, it's because you follow me, and then so yeah, it's interesting, just the whole social media thing.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people kind of have a bit of a pain point. It's like, they kind of, it's like you say, you put all this work into this one piece of content. You think it's, great, and probably is, but it just doesn't hit.
Right.
And then that's where a lot of people go, well, what am I wasting time doing this stuff for then?
Yeah.
Kind of like, if I'm not getting any like ROI on it, then why continue to do it? But I think it's like one of those things. It's like, kind of like jiu-jitsu. It's like, you can watch this awesome instructional and they can teach you right down to the wire, like what the sequence is. But like, I don't know if you can go on the mats and just do it.
Pull it off.
Like, you got to put the reps in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one of those, like a lot of my stuff that I started to do, like, yeah, it hurts. It was like, wasn't getting a lot of views, didn't have as many followers. Like, I'm still having that kind of with YouTube. Like, a lot of stuff I put on YouTube for some reason doesn't get picked up. I started using TubeBuddy, which is an SEO kind of YouTube keyword kind of extension, and I thought that would be the be all end all. Like, I'll get a ton of views because they boast, like, I forget what it's anecdotal. I think it's like 80% more views and 30% more subs or something. I don't know. They're fairly large claims. Obviously, you got to use the tool exactly correct, and I just started, so maybe I'm not. But I had some pretty recent initial success. I did like this video on a tiny home that you can buy on Amazon.
Okay.
Like a prefab, like comes with all the stuff, like kind of like, do you remember the Sears homes you used to be able to buy? Would have been before our time.
Yeah, I know the concept.
But like the catalog home, like
you
pick it out, you pick it up, they pick it up at the train station, they bring it over, build it, or they get a contractor to build it. Come with all the windows, doors, nail screws, just like a puzzle. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, it was just a green screen of me, like our screen recorded my phone, going through the Amazon ad, and just basically telling people like what it is. I even messed up the dimensions. I had to put in the comments I misspoke. And I just told people what it was, the price, where to find it, and it got like almost 3,400 views. And then on YouTube, it got like 2,500, sorry, more so.
And were you able to backward engineer to figure out why?
Well,
what made
the
that
way
successful?
TubeBuddy works, it's all like based on keywords, titles, so how you're titling with the keyword, in the video, and then your descriptor has to also have like the keywords in the title in there.
Okay.
And then it gives you kind of like a score out of 100 in terms of like your SEO.
Right.
Based on those keywords and how they associate with the title and the description. And they claim that the thumbnails don't make a difference. But I've kind of been testing. So a couple of those I made thumbnails got real good, like 1,000. Another one got like, closer to 3. And the last couple I posted without. And they're not doing quite as good.
Interesting.
But then they say like thumbnails won't necessarily get you views, but it might get, I forget what the
click through.
Yeah. That's like, I think that's what they said. But
and can you pick your thumbnails? I don't play much
yeah,
with YouTube.
I make them on Canva.
Okay. And then the more enticing that is to draw people in.
Yeah, like I guess the way you title it, maybe you have your keyword in there too.
Yeah.
I think that might pick up in the SEO, how it factors in the SEO, but it's been a big learning curve, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media, like we were talking about earlier before we started recording, like it's been a curve, and it's like you want everybody to watch your stuff because you've worked so hard on it, but it just like doesn't happen like that all the time.
And I mean, somebody like in the real estate business, I find, because I do SEO consulting, like I said earlier, I work mostly with B2B SaaS companies. I don't think I've ever gotten work directly off of social media. Most of it has been referral. Like I had a strong network early on, had some great contracts, did some good work, worked with some great people that I enjoyed working with. They enjoyed working with me. They moved on to other roles, and then they brought me onto that role. Now, that being said, I haven't stopped any social media. I always have something on the go, mostly on LinkedIn. The thought being it adds a bit of social proof.
Right.
To me. So if I'm referred by somebody else, what they say about me is going to be vetted by somebody else being able to go and check out my social media.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of always have in the back of my head is what I'm posting on social media. Does it have some context, or does it showcase me as an expert in that space? Don't have a whole lot of stats to back that up at this point, and I have a hard time attributing that return from that. But I feel like there's got to be some sort of presence. Although some of the best like fractional CMOs I know rarely post. And they're the type of people that would bring me on to the next project. Rarely post on LinkedIn unless they're sharing like a job for a company they're working for that they're trying to get some push on. But in the real estate business, it must be. Is it different, or is referrals still your strongest source of?
Yeah, I mean they're definitely the best. Like I mean, it's the best to get a referral from somebody. I mean, it just feels good. I mean, and it is probably. I mean, I'd have to talk to more agents, but like. I'm getting most of my stuff through like DMs and social media from people maybe I know in passing, maybe I've known them from years ago in high school. And yeah, it kind of just like, it kind of starts like that. It's like, hey, or it's like, maybe I don't really know them outside of they followed me on Instagram or social media. And it's like, this one example, this one gal was like, hey, been watching your stuff. Really like your content. We're thinking about buying. Do you think we could link up and chat? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for the kind words. Like makes making that content so much easier and funner. When do you want to meet? And we kind of set it up from there. So a lot of my leads, whether they're real warm or kind of lukewarm, like they're all kind of like coming in the DMs, like yeah. So like for like to your point, it's like some of my stuff wasn't getting a lot of views, but the people that were watching were interested. So the ROI for me was when people actually started. Maybe they weren't engaging. Maybe I get a like. Lately I've been getting more comments on like, because it's like I had a guy, a commercial banker in, and we were talking a little bit about CPI, Consumer Price Index, inflation, mortgage rates, carbon tax, and people love that stuff. And like people have opinions on that stuff too. So it was a lot of like agree or disagree and why, and which is great because nobody was really, going after my guest or me, they were just kind of like, well, don't really agree because of XYZ. Opens things up for healthy discussion. And I think, like, you know, if it was all that on social media, it'd be great. But then we all know it's most times not.
No.
It's like you say, but there's no consequence. Like, people can write things without even putting a thought into how it looks, how it's going to be received, that it's going to be there forever. And, like, a lot of people are like that. It's like, I mean, I've been guilty of it early on. Like,
oh, God, yeah.
You know, remember when Facebook was just statuses and pictures?
Yeah.
Like, I remember, you know, be like, I remember being in university and you just put, like, what's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah.
And you just have whatever amount of friends. And then, like, sometimes somebody message you and be like, oh, we're all going here.
Do you remember when your parents first went on Facebook?
They're not.
Oh, you're lucky. I remember when my parents went on Facebook because it was a big mad dash to go back through all my photos and just remove everything that could be.
Yeah.
But I didn't want, and I was like,
you just didn't
late
want to have
20s,
the discussion.
Early 30s kind of. I don't know if they want to. Yeah, I don't want you to see this.
Yeah.
Not at this point in my life, I guess.
Well, it's funny. My sister's birthday was on the 21st, and we went out. They come up. I'm originally from Yarmouth County, so Argyle specifically. So they drove up. They love coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Holy moly.
Parents seeing crap on Facebook. Like you're...
Oh, right. Yes, we were at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing that a lot lately. I mean... But, yeah, Dad was like, yeah, what's that app I go look stuff on? And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, TikTok. So he's on TikTok.
Oh.
But he just goes and he just, like, his buddies share fishing videos or ATVing videos or, you know, nonsense. And he just loves looking at it.
And the algorithms picked it up. And that's the one thing that I say about TikTok is their algorithm is just so good at feeding you
what you want,
or what they anticipate you want is so much better than in a lot of those other algorithms, and that's why it seems to be winning that short form video game right now. So for anybody going onto TikTok, you don't have to. It's like you think about Netflix, how much time do you spend just flipping around Netflix or Disney Plus trying to pick something?
It's been getting annoying lately because I think I watch too much Netflix.
Yeah.
Shamefully enough.
There's nothing enticing. There's like, oh, I've already watched that. That doesn't look interesting. That doesn't look interesting. But how much time you waste on that where you go on something like TikTok and it just like immediately...
Here's what you like. And
the next video, you're probably going to like this one too. And it's pretty damn good at guessing it. I mean, I'm not an active TikTok user. I've explored it a little bit, but... it's interesting. It's also interesting for that older demographic, what you see them get into. Because I find with time, a product like Facebook, the more I'm on it, the more I'm seeing a lot of posting from people my age and older. Like I'm in my late 40s, like people that are getting closer to 50 and onward, more retirees. Like they didn't go the Instagram route. They're not quite ready for TikTok, and it's when you're some of the things they share is kind of interesting. Like the I don't know if you remember if you copy and paste this thing, then Facebook can't own your photos. Those kind of posts.
Right. Yeah, I remember that stuff. Yeah,
that kind of stuff you still see.
That was a big deal for a bit, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was, and I still see that with an older demographic for people I know on Facebook. It's interesting just to see that kind of, I don't know, I guess the difference in like tech know-how, or I've lost my words, but yeah,
well, I get it. It's like the day I got a text message even from my dad was like, whoa, things are changing. And like, you know, Mom, like I went back, I was originally, so when I worked for Unilever, I don't know why this is relevant, but I'll say it anyway. I guess tech, but they give you a company phone. It was an iPhone. But they never give you the newest one. It would always be like a model or two behind because they buy them in bulk. Or I don't know how they do it, but I'm assuming there's a deal. And so that's why they get the older model. So I worked for them for like 8.5 years. So when I got structured out, which is what kind of prompted me to get into real estate, non-performance related, but still sucked either way. I canceled that. I was like, well, I don't want old customers calling me. I'm done. So I was just like, I'll cancel that number. And, well, it was their phone anyway, so the plan went with the job. So I went and I got an Android phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it because I'm a PC guy, always been. I mean, I got a MacBook. I kind of got into that when Apple come out.
Mm-hmm.
But I always liked PC a bit more. And then I got that Android. I thought it was great. But then my parents started getting cell phones. Well, they've had cell phones for a while, but they're all iPhones.
Okay.
So they'd send me videos or whatever, and it would get compressed, right?
Yeah.
It was just super annoying. And they just barely made it to iPhone to a smartphone, you know? So, like, telling them to get WhatsApp or Facebook, it was just Facebook Messenger. Well, you need Facebook for Facebook Messenger, and they don't have it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to, that they are going to die iPhone users. Like,
right.
They're never going to change. They're not people. They're not creatures of change. They're creatures of habit.
And they just adopted a new habit, so that habit has to stay.
That
for
has
a while.
to, yeah,
like we're
forever.
Not, yeah,
like we're not changing again.
Yeah.
And like Mom just bought a new iPhone, like from her first one, which has been, she had to buy because it just stopped working. It was like the the iOS updates. So anyway, and then I go hunting with a group of older guys too, and then we used to be in group chats, and my group chat messages would come up green, and they used to just give it to me. So I crumbled, and I went when my upgrade was ready after I got that first Android. I went back to iPhone.
Right.
And it was like I just did it just to and I hate conforming. But just to not have to deal with like people sending me stuff and it's all like, yeah.
Right.
Like it's weird that they haven't opened that interface up to like just have like SMS and like iMessage, Android, whether it's Apple, whatever, just like be all like database instead of like the archaic like SMS.
I've heard rumors that they're opening it up, but I can't remember where I heard.
Was it you that told me that?
Maybe you told me
when
that
we went to lunch.
We're both now creating it into something that doesn't exist. I don't know.
Who knows? I thought I heard it was going to be in a few years too, but
you need a Jamie, like the Joe Rogan Jamie, the guy that just fact checks everything, like looks it up for you. Oh yeah, here's the
right
for your podcast.
I got that Google Home thing. I use it for that reason sometimes. Like you can just ask it stuff and it'll answer, but that might be a little too specific for it.
Yeah, and you don't want to say what you're going to say to trigger it right now because it'll trigger everybody who's listening.
Exactly.
Google Home.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
But man, I totally forgot. We never even did the introduction.
Oh yeah.
But we'll just do it. So yeah, I guess we've been talking for a while, but welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming out. We got Mike MacMillan with the MacMillan Search group. Is it group?
It's just me right now, but
MacMillan Search.
It makes me sound bigger.
Yeah. Hey. So yeah, I guess we've already been into it, but yeah, social media. It's I don't know if you'll ever get it 100%, but it's there's a lot to it.
There is.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of got on a sidebar chat and kind of your background, education.
Sure. So yeah, MacMillan Search is an SEO consultancy. We've mostly worked with B2B SaaS. And that's, if people aren't familiar with the acronyms, and business to business, obviously, but software as a service. Most of our clients have been out of California, a few of Toronto, Vancouver, a few homegrown folks as well. They tend to be more companies that have established marketing teams. They're starting to scale up their marketing efforts. They've raised some funds. They're looking to grow the company, and we add a layer of onto their marketing team. When I first started, I started noticing there was a lot of these teams had all the pieces of a strong marketing team, but lacked SEO help in-house. They'd have people that were good at content and good at social, good at data science, and putting together dashboards and attributing the return on everything. But they lacked that kind of SEO lens. So my team, and we were more of a team back then when we started out, would come in and add that SEO layer. My SEO background, I finished high school in 95. I got on the internet around the same time. It was text-based. You had to go to the library to do it. Went into university, straight out of high school, did an arts degree, general arts, flipped around. I think I started in psychology, switched over to political science, took so many writing courses. I was tired of writing by the time of like those writing requirement courses. They were the ones that seemed interesting to me at the time. Excuse me. But what I did spend a lot of time on was IRC chats, anything that I could get. Like I really enjoyed having the computer labs at Dalhousie to play around with. I would miss school just to play around and chat with people across the world on these chat groups. Ended up taking a course through Dal. It was like intro to website design or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. It was a computer science course, but not computer science.
Right.
And we had to build our first website. And we're talking like 96, 97 era. And I think the website had to have like 3 links and an image. And you had like 3 months to finish it kind of thing. Wow. Like it's something I could put together in like an hour right now. But it was like a different era. This is early days. Google wasn't even really much of a thing at that point.
Yeah, what was like the one? Was it
Yahoo was a lot, and like
and what was that? Netscape?
Yes, Netscape Navigator, and then
yeah. Man, I'm digging in the bank here.
Yeah, taking it way back.
Right.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of potential in the internet. It more for my own selfish reasons. I didn't see a business use case at this point. I didn't think that way. My father was a banker, particularly worked for the BDC his whole life, career bank person. He jokes that he never wanted to be an entrepreneur because he worked with entrepreneurs all the time and he's seen all the good and all the bad.
Right.
But I ended up leaving university. Wasn't for me. About 2 years in. And took a summer, kind of work construction jobs, like the stereotypical East Coast kid. I can swing a hammer. I know how measuring tape works.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I'll go help people build houses for a little bit, do a little bit of demolition, get your frustrations out, and like
good skills.
Yeah, totally. I still use those skills to this day. I'm trying to teach my kids that right now.
So you're doing that big reno too, right?
Well, yeah, my basement's all gutted right now, and I'm framing up the walls myself, but I'm paying people to come in and do the electrical,
yeah,
and the plumbing and stuff, because you got to know your limits, right? You got to know where, and time is like the most precious resource I find. The older you get,
we have so little of it seems.
Yeah, when you work with computers all day too, it's kind of nice to spend a Saturday. I'll get my brothers together and we'll just and my dad will come over and we'll put up a couple walls and be sore from something that we didn't have to prescribe.
Instead of just looking at a screen and
exactly. So I left university, worked some construction for a little bit, ended up finding this community college program out in Truro that was called Interactive Technologies. It was, the cool thing about that course was that it had 24-hour access to computer labs. So it was like Dal, but it was a smaller program. There's only 2 programs that had access to this lab. We had a 24-track recording studio, this MIDI lab, for creating electronic music. Basically, we're talking late 90s. You could just rent it out. I would spend 8 hours just sitting in this room making weird. I used to call it monkey music because it would sound like monkeys playing in the jungles. I had this monkey in the jungle kind of phase in the late 90s. So that's the only thing that came out of me musically, I guess. And we had a full Apple lab, so all Apple computers that were top of the line at the time. We had a dark room. We had to learn how to, because digital cameras were hard. We had 2 digital cameras that are always booked out and the quality wasn't that great. So it was better for us to shoot something with a regular camera. We're talking late 90s and then scan it in and then start manipulating it with Photoshop than it was to take it from the digital camera, being that the digital camera, it was a little bit more pixely. And it was hard to get because that was new tech at the time. So we only had 2 of them. Everyone always had them booked out. We had a full videos recording suite, a 24-track. I mentioned the recording studio. There was a couple people that were using the recording studio basically to produce albums. A lot of the late 90s rap that came out of Halifax in Nova Scotia was coming out of that school or that recording studio.
Really?
Yeah. Rob Squire used to go, I think 6'2" was his DJ and MC name back then, was in the program ahead of us, and he was bringing in people that were highly famous for rap to make music, and there's some cool stuff coming out of there.
That is cool.
There's a handful of people also that were more into like guitar rock kind of stuff that were making music there. We got to play around with it as well. Yeah, so this program was great. We basically were given a playroom to play with. In the digital space, we had to, but it wasn't, I think it was originally designed for people to learn how to make kiosks for tourism.
Really?
Yeah, we were learning this scripting language called Lingo, which would be really good for putting together some sort of kiosk, like late 90s kind of digital kiosk. I think that's, rumors I've heard is that's how they sold the program. But a lot of people were using it to learn web design, programming, because these courses, without going through like a traditional computer science degree, didn't really exist at the time. They were using it for sound recording. I took that education, finished it in 2 years. We got to learn some business as well. So there was part of it with the community college was always good at like teaching us how to do business as well. They wanted that element so that you could come out and be able to either operate in a business or start your own business. So they were really big on kind of pushing that
separate
piece.
now, right?
I mean, it's been a few
I just
years
mean like from university to like say college, like one's more theory, the other one's more hands-on.
Yes.
Like there's not really, I think it's important is what I was going to say to like have that base for both.
I think so.
Like the skill set and to get out there and operate on your own.
I think it's amazing how much that I remembered a lot of that stuff, but it didn't resonate with me until I went out on my own. Like it didn't come back and like, oh, that's how I should have done it. Or, oh yeah, I picked that skill up from it. I used it to become a graphic designer. When I finished the program, I got a job. I did a couple like freelance websites. It was like 99. Websites were
starting to boom.
Most companies knew they needed something. There weren't CMSs. You had to kind of build it from the ground up. At least not in like the
What's
sense
a CMS? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, content management system. So like WordPress would have like a back end you could log in. So you needed to actually kind of know some HTML to update your website. If the content changed, that's why we didn't see blogs like at that phase, is because if you were writing content all the time, you'd have to actually know HTML to be able to get it up on your website.
So you'd have to rewrite it into the code type thing?
Yeah. And I remember, and then like learning scripting languages like PHP, you could start like templating things. So you could have a header and a footer that was consistent throughout the whole website. Otherwise you had to copy and paste it over. And we all know you copy and paste something a handful of times. Every time is a room for error, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a mistake somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, I took that education, turned it into a graphic design job with a local film company in Halifax. So that's kind of me getting into digital marketing in a way. We were not pushing, but we were developing websites for television properties, that the television and some film properties that this organization had. They bought some channels as well at one point, or they got the rights to some channels. So we developed what that content would look like a little bit. So I was doing more of a design, but I started to understand how all the different pieces work together. I worked with a bunch of programmers. We were a new media department. This is back when a new media department was a separate part of any organization. You had your traditional media and your new media, and the new media were the geeks you kind of put in the basement.
Right.
Yeah.
Working on the techie stuff.
Yeah, the techie stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't invite us out too much, or if they did, they didn't want to hear us
talk
after too many drinks.
Confuse them, right?
Yeah.
What
like
is
all
that?
This technical stuff you're talking about. It was a great little crew of people I worked with, a lot of interesting programmers. None of them were traditionally trained programmers. Not one was a computer science graduate either. Like our head programmer had an arts degree from NASCAD. I think he was fine art too.
It's quite a contrast.
Yeah, well, he was
Fine
a
arts to
great
programming.
programmer though, like an amazing programmer. Anyway, I did that for a few years and then got laid off. They sold the company to a bigger company. So again, I went back to construction. Again, good old Nova Scotian kid. Whenever something went wrong, I didn't have a job. I just found a hammer and
just go swing a hammer.
Exactly. And
Why
someone will
not?
pay you to do it, right?
Man, they'll pay you a lot now.
Yeah, I should have stuck with it, honestly. Right? Sometimes I wonder.
We don't have enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is actually, that's definitely an issue right now in our area for sure, is getting more tradespeople out in the world, or in our province. I swung a hammer for a little bit, became a ski bum for a few years, moved out west.
Yeah, you guys do like to ski.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Moved to Banff. Didn't really ski much before that. Tried snowboarding a few times out here. It was kind of rough.
Like Banff just got you hooked or what?
A buddy of mine worked for the big three, the Lake Louise, Sunshine, and Norquay.
What is it? And do you remember Benson used to work at a big ski lodge out west too? You didn't know that?
No, I've never actually sat down and chatted with Benson. Other than
what's in Calgary? Is it Whistler?
You have Banff. You'd have Norquay, and there's COP, which is the in-house, like in city one in Calgary, and it's the one they built for the Olympics. I think what year was that? 80. It was in the 80s. So they've got a like in City Hill, but then you drive an hour and a half outside. You go to Canmore, and then you get out to Banff, and you have Norquay and Banff. Then about 20 minutes outside of that, you got Sunshine. About another 10 minutes, you got Lake Louise.
And where's Whistler's?
Whistler's Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Well,
okay, yeah.
An hour north of Vancouver.
So I'm getting mixed up. So it might have been one of those in Calgary.
Okay.
Or he might have been some. I know he moved from Calgary to Halifax when he was in that ski resort,
right?
Working there. He might have been in another province in like out west, but
a lot of Australians in Alberta, a lot around the ski hills too. I found like
really,
a lot of Australians and Kiwis too.
So if they can't surf on the water, they're doing it.
They're doing it on the hills, yeah. And I don't think they have hills like that, or hills. I should call them mountains, because here they're hills, out there they're mountains.
Right.
Yeah. I did the ski bum thing for a little bit. Picked it up when I was out west. Moved to Banff for summer, just to kind of was doing a remote job back. I can't remember how long ago that was now. After a few years, I was pushing 30. I was figuring I'll move to Vancouver because I'm enjoying skiing, but I want to ski where I can have an adult job instead of serving. And like I did some construction again.
Yeah.
Didn't have work, so I picked up a hammer.
There you go.
But serving was the way to kind of live in a ski resort town, because you can work in the night, make decent amount of money, and then you have your days available. Because a lot of them are national parks too, so you can't ski at night because they shut them down. They're animal corridors. There's or they're, even if they're not in a national park, they're part of a national park, or they're just adjacent to it. Moved to Vancouver and got back into digital marketing. Worked for an agency that dealt mostly with publicly traded mining companies. Did like low-level programming. We'd put together mailing or emails for investor relations people. We'd build them photo galleries, because they were most of the companies we were dealing with were publicly traded mining exploration companies. So they relied heavily on investor relations to make money, and those email lists had to come out. Now, the cool thing about working for a company in Vancouver was, the one, I was able to transition back to Nova Scotia because we would keep a handful of people in Nova Scotia because they were an hour ahead of the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Right.
So it gave us people at a time zone that wasn't foreign, that could wake up and put things together and make sure things were ready to go. They could go out to time it better with the market. But one thing I noticed working with these companies, we started getting SEO requests in. So they would be working with another SEO consultant. And this is my long way of getting to how I got into SEO. So they would work with an SEO consultant that wouldn't do the work. They would just provide the direction, but they still need somebody to implement it. And we were maintaining their website. We were doing a lot of their changes to the website. So we would get these reports. We would go through and update the information. I've always prided myself on pattern recognition. So I started to see the reports were coming in. I recognized where they were coming from, or I was able to dig in to find out where these reports were coming from. So I sweet talked my boss into letting me focus on SEO. The thought being, if we can provide the direction and the implementation, we could save our clients money. We could take a bigger chunk of the pie that they have for their budget. And he agreed with it, tied a little bit of analytics to it as well, because if you can't measure it, it's hard to measure the ROI. So you need that. Right. So we always had to throw a little aspect of analytics into that. He allowed me to do it 50% of my time, which was great. I got to take a couple of training courses. When I look back on that time, I'm like, I don't know how good I was at what I was doing at the time, but I was very confident in it at one point, so that probably sold it a little bit better.
Right.
yeah, I took the opportunity to move back home to help align the people that were working in home, being Halifax, to align the people that were working for us from Nova Scotia. That gave me an opportunity to lead a team without a lot of overhead, or not a lot of overseeing, I guess, from the people in Vancouver, because they trusted me. There was the 4-hour time difference, so they just had to kind of let me run with it. So I got to pick up some good leadership skills. As I started an office here, hired some more people, trained those people up, got them doing a little bit more analytics, started getting comfortable more with coaching and training younger people that were coming up that want to, and showing them the use case, the business case of why we're doing what we do. Took a little break from that, did a little bit of traveling. My wife and I were figuring, we wanted to settle down. We were looking at a house, and then it felt the deal fell through. We were like, okay, we got this money saved up. We're kind of getting serious about being adults. Maybe we should go do some backpacking, the kind of crap we probably can't do. Can I say crap?
Oh, yeah.
All
absolutely.
right, cool. All right,
Yeah, we're pretty relaxed.
You're opening up the can of worms now. I'm just
Yeah,
going to go
yeah.
full on swear.
That's it.
What was my train of thought?
Backpacking.
Yeah, so we decided to do some backpacking. Went down South America, lived like 20-somethings, even though I was in my mid-30s at that point.
You got to live.
Yeah, and got to experience the world a little bit, at least the South American world. Came back from that and got headhunted by a local company, B2B SaaS company that was looking for somebody to do SEO in-house full-time. And it was a big pay cut from what I was doing, because I was running an office. There was a nice little I was basically making Vancouver wages in Halifax, which
nice.
at the time felt great. Like I felt like I was on top of the world. So I took a bit of a pay cut just to kind of go back to school in a way. Like this is going to be my full-time job, focusing on one property. Had a great time working for that company. Did I think 1.5 to 2 years with them. Really got to explore things, got to figure out how to work with content teams, got to understand the bigger picture, learning how to deal with engineers and how to get them on board with marketing efforts when they're really focused on what the product is.
Back end,
yeah, nothing's worse than I see this even with B2B SaaS companies, is like you come up, if it's one of my questions early on with them when I'm vetting a company, is like, do you have dedicated resources for the marketing website? Or is it, and if they say, oh yeah, we got engineers, they work on the product, we'll just get them to come over. I'm like, they're never going to find it as important or as interesting as working on the product. Like it's really powerful if a company has, especially at that size, has somebody technical that sits on the marketing team, but can push changes or can do the changes to the website. So you actually see your direction come to fruition, and then you can really measure that return on it. Worked for them for a few years. Again, got I wouldn't say headhunted, but got put out a couple feelers to meet some other SEOs, because I was always working by myself in a bit of a silo. And
it gets lonely.
It does. It's like, there's no one to bounce ideas around with. So
Yeah,
I got my own biases. Like,
Yeah.
whatever I believe is right, because no one's told me otherwise, other than like reading blogs online or at that time I wasn't going to like conferences to meet up with other SEOs or anything along those lines. And then I got an agency found me through these SEOs I started to connect with. Brought me on. I was the second SEO hire in a content marketing team. The person above me eventually left, I think a year later, starting another agency or joining another agency. And I basically inherited his SEO team, which we had hired one other person. So back to a team of 2. And then while working for this agency over the next couple of years, we were seeing the return from SEO. They specialize in hospitality and tourism, a lot of destination marketing organizations like NASA Paradise Island or like Tourism BC. These were the type of clients they were working with. They dealt with high-end hotel brands as well. And I built a team of 9 in this agency of SEO specialists. So we had 3 SEOs that focused. We had 3 that kind of acted more as like senior project manager people. They like led projects. They were that main person. They met with the client. They talked about things. And then we had 3 people that specialized in specific parts of it. One was focused on PR and backlink building. So they're like the people that do outreach and get links built, which is a part of SEO. That's one of the things I think a lot of people struggle with. One person that focused on technical. We found the board programmer on the programmer side, and he was doing our tasks for us. So we brought him over, mainly because when we talked to other programmers, we were trying to get third parties to do the work. They would try to out-developer us, where they would just kind of try to talk super technical, so people would get confused and just let it go and let them run with it. This guy could do the same thing back to them, so we just leave them alone and let them go back and forth for a little bit and just
let them fight it out.
Yeah, exactly. And he was really good. Like he could out-developer them. And then that PR guy too was really good at relaying with the content people, because the SEO people are always, if you ever seen like a traditional agency, you've got your content marketers, more like creative people, a lot of writers, and then you've got your development team, very technical, computer science or like a technical degree. I wouldn't say they're oil and water, but they don't necessarily. I hate to say they don't get along, because there's a lot of people that get along, but the SEO team fell in the middle of all that. We were data driven, somewhat technical. We knew how to do some really complex things, but ask us to like program something from the ground up, we'd be lost. Most of us, some of them could do it. And we were creative, but we weren't quite a writer. Like, I still had to get people to proofread any important email that went out, because we were sometimes a little bit too logical or analytical than when we're dealing with like marketing people. So
you got to be very like grassroots, like blank slate kind of type thing.
Yeah.
For marketers, you just find like the lingo had to be adapted a bit or adjusted.
If you were dealing with developers, you could kind of be really straightforward and
right.
Like, we need X, Y, and Z done. You didn't have to do.
Oh, you mean like fluffing up the communications? Yeah. I was not a fluff guy.
Very straightforward. I found, right? Like
Unilever days would be like, "Hey, Chris, do we got July numbers for X account?" I'd be like, "Here's the attached."
Yeah. Whereas it's like, "Oh, it's great to hear from you." How are the kids?
Like, I mean, I care, but like not enough to put it in any. I don't know.
No,
I've learned to have to tailor my approach.
I appreciate that.
My only negative performance review, if you can call it negative, was like, I still remember the email. We won't say, but like, and I know who complained, because it was like a thing.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, hey Chris, like great year, always performed above expectation and targets, and it was like just one comment, like maybe just like don't be as cold in your emails. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, well, sometimes like people like write and like ask you for things, and you kind of just like,
here it is.
Like they're just like, just fluff it up.
Less transactional.
Yeah. Just fluff it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? He was a buddy of mine, because we both started as reps.
Okay.
He went the Toronto route. I didn't want to go to Toronto. I like to go, like, it's a cool place to visit, but I knew it wasn't for me.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, he kind of ended up, I was the district guy here, and he was just the position. He was like our team lead.
Okay. And so charge your employee reviews and.
Yeah.
But you were peers at one point, not.
Yeah. And he still I've always, like, they were great. Like, at least our team was awesome. Like, it was always like level playing field.
Nice.
But he's just like, yeah, man. He's just like, I know you don't mean nothing by it, but just like some people, they need a little bit more. And I was like, that's fair.
Yeah.
But anyway, I kind of stole your...
No, that's all right. I was rambling on about agency complaints more than anything.
And the marketing and the developer side, communications. And
SEOs always fell in the weird middle. Like, we didn't know what to do. I remember I joked at one point because they gave us a beer tap and a Nintendo Switch with Mario Kart on it, and I think it was only just so people would come and hang out with us.
Okay.
Which they did.
I was going to say, did it work?
Yeah, it did work. Yeah, sometimes it was hard to leave on a Friday evening, because it's like, oh, man, I just got my butt whooped in Mario Kart.
Yeah, and I need another beer. Yeah. I got to win.
I gotta come back from this. Like, God, I can't believe that guy took me out.
You can't beat. We used to do that all the time with a few buddies back in the day. Just like have a night, just play Mario Kart, like Super Smash Brothers. You play.
I don't play Smash Brothers. My kids kill me at it. It's so defeating to have them. I'm like, you give me Street Fighter 2 on a Super Nintendo, I'll kick your 8-year-old butt.
Yeah.
But Super Smash Bros. Like
Street
nowadays.
Fighter was around, but I think I was just getting like, you're a bit older than me.
Yeah.
It was just like a little bit like my cousins that would be were big in like Mortal Kombat too.
Yeah. Yes.
And like I remember like my first exposure, my cousin Matt had a Sega.
Okay.
And we used to go play around. And then we ended up getting a Sega or the Genesis.
Right. Yeah.
He had like the bigger one.
Oh yeah.
Or were you a Nintendo guy, or did you?
I was a Nintendo guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Apple PC argument. It's like back in the day, it was Nintendo or Sega. There was like Sega families, Nintendo families.
Well,
We were
it's
Nintendo
funny.
family.
We never I don't ever remember knowing about like video games. Like for some reason, we were always doing outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
It's like 1 year for Christmas, it was like, boom, Sega. I was like, whoa, what is this? Like Sonic, and then whatever amount of years passed, and then the 64 come out, and like we didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, it was a fantastic gift to get and not know about.
Yeah.
And I remember like Sega blew my mind, and then like Mario 64 was like, what is happening?
Right.
And then we got an Xbox 1 year and with Halo, and I was like, this is just like you could barely like compute like the drastic increase in like bandwidth and performance from like a Nintendo 64 to like an Xbox, and then it just kept going.
Oh yeah.
I stopped it. Like I sold my Xbox. What was it? There's 360, and then the one after that.
Yeah, I
X.
can't remember.
Xbox.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I just kind of fell out of it. I do a little bit of PC gaming, but
Yeah.
you can't beat like playing the old school games, I find.
The kids don't like it as much. Like,
No?
well, we built as a project. We took a Raspberry Pi, which is like this
Yeah, I
little
know
mini
about
computer.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We built a little arcade machine that could play like all the classics. So it has a bunch of like Atari and Sega
Nice.
and NES and SNES games. I don't think it can handle 64 because it's a small little computer. But I got my kids a little bit into like Super Metroid or some of these like old, more classic games.
Yeah,
And-
the 2D ones for probably some of the kids are tough to get into. Eh?
Well, they're not as forgiving too. I find you
Yeah.
die really quickly, and you only got 3 lives. It's not like there's like this.
Remember
hacker.
like original Mario when they had like the twirling like sticks of fire, and
Yeah.
you'd have to like man, I'll tell you, those were tough.
Yeah,
To run, jump, stop, wait for the thing to come around, then you'd have to ding ding ding. Oh
Yeah.
man. And then you'd only have so many lives, and then you die and you have to start all over again.
yeah, and like the Nintendo, you couldn't even save anything. I don't think.
No.
So it's like you
I
just.
think it might save when you finish like beating like a land or something. Maybe.
Well, I remember you used to get a code. I remember the original Nintendo. We'd have this like book that was just full of like Mega Man. You'd have like the AX453. You'd have this like I think it was like 16-digit long code that you could put in, and it would take you back to where you were.
Oh,
And that was their way around not being able to save.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a challenge. I remember playing Mega Man and with my kids. They got really into Mega Man at one point, and we had a little book. And I still find that book every once in a while, and it's just a series of
Just like
gibberish.
up, down, up. Yeah.
like
I remember that was what used to frustrate me about Mortal Kombat, because I got a Sega. I was like, well, I need to
Yeah.
get Mortal Kombat because my cousin has it. And
Yeah.
I want to beat him. And he knew like all the like and
Yeah.
like the Sub-Zero freeze and
Yeah.
all the like fatality moves.
nice.
But like I just like I don't know if it was like my brain was too young to like comprehend or do it fast enough, or I don't know. I just couldn't. I could get a couple, but like I could never get all like the really badass like finishing moves and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. Sorry, we got on a little tangent.
No, that's
there.
all right. Video games.
But yeah, game nights tough to get home.
Yeah, tough to get home. Did the agency life for a while. Got into like I was in a leadership role, leading a team. I was struggling with being also like the senior person on the team and also being the leader because I would spend all day dealing with leadership type
Fires,
problems.
Yeah.
And then I'd get home and I'm like, I still got to do my work. I'm still responsible for
Oh, right.
these
So you dual
clients.
role.
So
yeah.
I would like put my kids to sleep. But I would always have it in the back of my head. Like I was just not present in supper.
Right.
So I would just be struggling with that work that I had to do. And then they'd go to bed 7 o'clock or whatever. And then I'd
you'd
go to
open the
work.
laptop.
Yeah. And then I'd work until 1 o'clock and then I'd go to sleep, wake up, repeat.
Yeah, that's tough.
It was a struggle, and I was missing out on parts. And I was there for my kids. My kids don't think I was absent, but I didn't feel like I was there, if that makes sense.
You were present, but you're elsewhere sometimes.
Yeah.
I get that a lot too.
And you couldn't disconnect. You were getting emails on your phone.
Man. The old electric leash.
Yeah. And we
can't get away from it.
It's in our pockets now. It's interesting because like if you don't respond to somebody now from a text, and like I regularly take breaks. Like you can't get a hold of me after 9 o'clock unless you're my dad.
Same. Like if I could do it even earlier,
yeah,
I would. But like, yeah, usually 8, like 9 o'clock for sure, and then after 8, you got it should be a client that's like we're in a deal, we're waiting for offers.
Yeah,
or like I gotta like you a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it, man. You got to put back. I've been doing more of that as well just recently. Because you can't just like burn the candle at both ends all the time.
No, it's just not sustainable. I mean, what's the point? Like, we're doing this to give ourselves a better quality of life. Or
it's like just because I have this doesn't mean you get to have my attention immediately right now.
Yeah.
If it's, 11:55 p.m. or something. Like, it's some people expect it, though.
I can remember, like, the year 2000, they were offering free cell phones. So I'm working for that first digital marketing company, and we're a small new media team, right? And one of the guys was responsible for the servers. This is when you didn't have servers out in a server farm. You had servers in the actual location.
Yeah.
And that's where everything was hosted. And there was notifications. Somebody was responsible for the servers, and they got paid a little bit extra to be on call, and they got a cell phone. But the thing could ping you at any given time, and then you'd have to go. And we'd be sitting down in the bar, and he'd be like, not far from work at like 10 o'clock at night, and he'd get a ping, and like, got to go upstairs and reset the server. And it felt like such a leash, and we're talking like 2000. And this is when not everyone had a cell phone. Like, having a cell phone was a bit of a status symbol too. It's like, wow, I got a cell phone. I'm important. It's
right,
like,
yeah,
like the pagers used to be.
I was just going to say, pager, bing,
oh, I got a page. I'm like, you're
Gotta
either a
go call
doctor
someone.
or you're selling drugs, right?
Yeah. You got to hit the payphone up. Hold on.
Yeah, and I know you didn't go to school for very long, so I know what you're doing.
That car's a little too nice.
Yeah. You don't look tired enough.
Right?
Yeah, you're not a doctor. Yeah, it felt like such a leash, and now everyone has a leash by default. Like, if you don't, like, my kids are asking for a leash now, which is interesting. Like, I see the value of it. I wouldn't give up my phone. Like, the fact that I'm able to drive over here and make sure there's no fires on the way over.
Isn't that amazing? That's some of the amazing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Let me check the route, make sure there's no accidents.
Oh,
and that's just new recently. Like, what's that? 5 years?
Yeah, it's built off of, is it Waze that they bought that does like the crowdsourcing of like congestion?
Because I used to use that one for a bit because it provided that and like speed traps and different things. I think.
Yeah.
Not that I speed.
Right.
Ever. But I just, anyway, something new comes up. Oh, it's different than Google. Let's try this one.
Yeah.
But I always ended up going back to.
Well, Google acquired Waze.
Right.
So they took that tech and then they,
back and forth.
And I remember using Waze back when it was a distinct property. I don't know if you could still get it by itself. And it was useful here, but I found I remember telling my wife's Quebecois, her family's all in Montreal, and she got her mom using it, and her mom hated it because it didn't. Quebec was it's a different thing, especially around Montreal. Like, I don't think it could keep up with all the road construction going on in Montreal. So it's like
I found Toronto folks used it.
Did it work well for them?
I don't really have that input, but I just noticed from like going to Bloor for quarterly meetings or whatever amount of times, like half a dozen times a year, and we get Ubers and so we're going to Uber. Well, that was a thing in the 8.5 years that I was at Unilever. Uber kind of became a thing. So when I had the opportunity to use Uber, I noticed a lot of the times they were GPSing using Woz or whatever.
Okay, Waze. Woz. I never said it out loud, so you could be right.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm the worst at pronouncing stuff. So.
Working for where was I? Agency. So working for an agency, kind of feeling the burnout of it all.
Yeah.
Somebody had come to me that I had done a couple lunch and learns for their company, not a competing skill set, but like in the B2B SaaS space, they wanted me to come and do lunch and learn, explain to their team high level concepts of SEO. So I did that and got along with them very well. This was all kind of outside of the agency thing. It was kind of something I did on the side. And I'm starting to do a little bit of public speaking and a couple of meetups about SEO. One WordPress comes to mind, the WordPress meetup group locally in Halifax here. And so it was giving me practice of talking about my concepts and bringing them to a broader audience too, not just explaining it to the converted, but explaining it to the non-converted, like people that aren't in the space, and trying to get them comfortable with the terminology. So like there's always that balance. Like I know I probably got a little bit more terminology ish in here, even around digital marketing and whatnot. And, but in figuring out how to kind of explain things in a way that still positions you as the expert, but also makes it accessible so people don't feel dumb, even though they're smart in their own space. When somebody comes in and they know a lot about their space and they start throwing around acronyms and details that are just common knowledge to you.
Well, why don't you tell us just
sure
quickly? I guess we probably never even really went over it. Like search engine optimization or SEO. Like, what is the base function that's best, for different businesses? Like, what's it best used for, and how can it benefit like X business? And like, what was like the most attractive thing in SEO that kind of like led you to kind of pursue this journey with your business?
Sure, I'm gonna start the other way and take it back. So what made SEO so attractive to me? There's always a problem to solve. There's lots of tools out there that give you kind of a leading indicator, but you still have to. There's always going to be a human kind of involved. We'll see. Actually, I shouldn't say always.
Yeah. ChatGPT's coming for your job.
It's
not your job, but our jobs.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, yeah. All hail great AI overlords.
Right.
Can I work for you?
Right.
If you need a human to kind of interact with other humans,
right.
I'm open to the role.
No,
there's always a problem to solve. There's always something to figure out.
That's the best part.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to learn it all. Like I know friends that are in the trade. Sometimes they say, "Well, like I can wire a house. I can wire a warehouse. Like not enough has changed. I'm kind of bored of this." And then they start running they start building a team because at least it's a bit of a challenge, and
then you get more jobs.
That's the way to grow, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you stayed in that skill set, where I find with SEO, I could stay in the SEO skill set, and there's always going to be something new to learn, something that's worked for other people that you can adopt to your niche or industry that you're working in. So that's kind of what attracted me to SEO. It's a bridge between creativity and technical too.
So it kind of pulls on your graphic design.
Yeah.
days.
Like I couldn't do graphic design to save my life nowadays. I look at people that are really good at it.
But you get to dip in that pond of creativity more so.
Exactly. There's a part of it that's interpretive, that's creative. That's whereas like pure, like if you're doing pure like data science driven marketing, there's usually a yes no answer, or it's probably a little bit open to interpretation,
right?
But that's kind of what attracted to me, the fact that it is creative, but it's still technical. It doesn't have to be purely creative. There's still like a lot of data pulling and trying to get some numbers to point you in the right direction. So yeah, that's more or less what attracted me to it. A lot of people moved from SEO to paid during the Penguin Panda era, when these are algorithm update nicknames. When things started happening with those updates, it became harder to kind of game the system.
Okay.
So a lot of people moved to paid ads, like Google ads and kind of thing, because you can put X in and get Y out. And if X is if you're putting way too much money then that you're getting out, you can pull levers to adjust those things.
Right.
And it's really clear, like the return on things. Or it can be very clear. SEO is still left up to a little bit more interpretation. So there's less and less people doing it. So that meant there was more need for people to do it. A lot of the people I work with nowadays used to do SEO, but don't anymore. And so they understand like the importance of it, the concept behind it. Sometimes they have some outdated thought processes around it. You have to steer in the right direction. But that's I guess that's kind of in a nutshell why I got into it and why I stick with it. It allows me to do a little bit of everything I do. there's still an element, like I've been reteaching myself how to program, which has been really interesting. It's
I have intro level 1 Python
do you?
certificate.
Might have to pick your brain. I'm relearning Python
right
now.
I can get print hello world. That's listen, I use it loosely. I got bored. Speaking of getting bored, when I was doing stuff for Unilever, I was kind of looking to get out, even though I got told that I was going out.
Right.
And I always found that world a little interesting because I knew, like, I could, not like I'm some kind of savant, but like you could kind of see where things are going. Everything's going social media. And I was like, well, maybe I could do some intro courses, and if I really like it, maybe I could go just do some more schooling and get like a programming job, because I was like, there's no way those are going out of date. Like,
who'd have thought?
Right? I know. And then ChatGPT come. But I did intro level 1 and 2.
Okay.
Through Coursera. Have you heard of them? .org.
Yeah.
Great resource, by the way, for anybody that wants to learn some stuff. Like, I think there's stuff on SEO. I think there's there's a whole bunch of stuff in that. I think you can learn almost anything you want on there.
Yeah.
It was like, mine was through the University of Michigan, I guess.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I got a certificate somewheres, and it's like from there. Like,
yeah. Was it accredited? Like you could go back and challenge?
I think I might be able to.
Oh,
but,
cool.
And it was like university professor, like doing the little webinars, and you can do it at your own pace. It was pretty cool.
Anything that makes your brain work on a regular basis, I think, is good. And pushes you out of your comfort zone. Like
100%.
I'm constantly trying to learn French because my wife is Quebecois. My kids go to a French school. Like
I'm
three
a
of
Canadian
them.
French.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, bilingual.
Nice.
Not as good as your wife and probably your kids.
I've
been up here for forever.
She struggles with like understanding Acadians too, which is funny because
They
French
just
people have a hard time with Quebecois, and Quebecois have a hard time with Acadian.
We can do the France.
Yeah.
And they can understand us, but like I go to Quebec. Well, the guys I go hunting with, I told you about. Yeah. We go to Quebec snow goose hunting.
Okay.
Almost every year. And like I'm the guy that has to order the coffee, because where I grew up, like there's a French community right there, but we were in the English because Dad is English.
Okay.
Mom's French. So anyway, I'm the translator. So I go get all the coffee in the mornings before the hunts. And like my French actually has been getting better because like every trip they start answering me. But before I was pretty rusty.
Yeah.
And they'd just be like, just order in English. And I'd be like, oh, how dare you?
It's like when I go to Montreal, like I've been practicing French. I've known my wife for 15 years now, I think.
Oh, they'll just answer you in English?
They just answer me in English. They hear my accent. My accent's horrible. My kids make fun of my accent.
Yeah, well.
Now my kids have come up with no French accent, no English accent too, which is great. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, the thing for me is like I feel like, okay, I'll tell you how I feel about it, and then how I've heard that they interpret what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they just, like you say, they just answer you in English.
Yeah.
So to me, they might not think I'm French, but like where I come from, I'm French.
Right.
And I'm like trying to speak because I know that's their preferred, for obviously first language, and then to answer me in English, it's just almost like offending.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to.
It's like know what I said.
Yeah.
And then I got it explained to me because we had a Montreal office as well.
Right.
And I think somebody brought that up. And they're like, yeah, but like to us, we think that just answering you back in English is just easier. Right. We don't think about it being rude.
Right.
But like to me, I perceive it as like, well, I'm trying
here.
And it's just not well received. Or like, they say it's just like, we're just trying to make it easier and just answer you in English.
Which makes sense. Like,
yeah.
But I find learning a language is a really good brain teaser, especially like the older you get, the more you got to do stuff. I remember I had this little stint where I would do chess problems. Like I used to do the early morning jiu-jitsu class, and I would do chess problems before jiu-jitsu while I was having my coffee. So I would like make a coffee first thing in the morning, eat a banana, and do a couple of chess problems. And then I would have I'd have better rolls at jiu-jitsu afterwards.
Because you'd always almost like you warmed up your brain to think about what you wanted to do.
Well, and it was all about the chess problems were all about setting something up to make them do something else too, which I think is a big part of
it's the ultimate.
Yeah, being able to like, it's
in
like I'm not just going for. I can't think of a good example, but you aim for something specific, more or less to set something else up that's gonna you're gonna get like, or there's even like a chain of those things, which is when it starts getting like with chess, when you're thinking like 4 moves ahead, it's like, I can't remember why it makes it. I can't remember how many, because I'm not a properly trained chess player or anything like that. But being able to push your brain to do those interesting things. So I find the same thing with learning how to program. It's like I've done SEO and the concepts behind that. It's almost a little repetitive at this point. So being able to throw something in the mix of like, how can I solve this problem on scale using a Python script and talking to this API? And now that we have tools like ChatGPT, like I'm teaching a course through Digital Nova Scotia, which I'm not a programmer, but I'm teaching people how to think about programming, more or less programming for non-programmers, but using ChatGPT as their guide, as their coach, as they work their way through it. So it removed a few of these barriers that normal people would have, because like I want to write a piece of code, I'd have to sit down and learn all the basics. I'd have to do the hello world example. Like every programming course starts with that hello world example.
100%.
And then you get into other things like, how do I do arrays? How do I handle variables and those types of things? But with something like, ChatGPT.
Or you can borrow my book.
Oh yeah, you got a
Python for
book?
everybody right there. You see it? It's just the first one.
Oh my gosh,
out.
yeah.
And
Nice.
I have some Post-its in it that I was like reviewing some.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I
don't know,
I just noticed it.
It's right there too. It's like the first book next.
Right?
To it.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I didn't even do it on
It's
purpose.
a total plant. I don't know.
Right?
I don't believe it.
Sorry, I keep throwing
That's why
you
books
off.
are there to start conversations, right?
Right.
Like-
That's it. I don't read them.
It's funny. My bookshelf has a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook that I got when I was like a teenager.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like sitting with a bunch of other business books, like just randomly. It's like value-based pricing, and then the Anarchist Cookbook. Like
That's awesome. I love that.
and people, I should have it in the background just to see if anybody picks up on it.
Yeah.
In Zoom calls. Although people might ask a lot of random questions, because that's a weird book if you've ever had a chance to read it. I digress.
Funny. Actually, I thought I was on a Unilever call, and it was my director, the guy that give me the heads up. It was a good buddy of mine too, older fella. He gave me the heads up I was going to get structured out, and this office was a lot smaller pre-renovation, and I'm a hunter, and I just got a bow, and I was like, man, I don't know where to put this, so I put a hanger, just behind, like just to the left of my office, or my desk in my office. And I didn't realize, like, when I was on video calls, like, you could see my bow.
Yeah.
And my director's like, Chris, is that a bow behind you? I go, yeah. He goes, what is it doing there? I go, I don't know.
Needed to hang it somewhere.
He's like, and then he jokes. He said he had a nightmare that I was chasing around with that bow.
Is this
Asking
before or
him.
after he restructured you?
This one, actually, it was great. I think he told me that after. But he said I was chasing him around for a race.
Okay.
Going like, I'm going to get you. And I was like, go on. He's like a dead serious, man.
Yeah.
But he's a good guy. He's a good buddy of mine. It's
Nice.
funny.
It's
But, he messaged me after. He's like, I'm not saying anybody said anything, but maybe just like take it out of the frame for the team calls. I don't know. You never know what people think.
I blur my background now.
Well, and you know what? I used to do that too. And I just, maybe I was late getting on. I just, boom. And I was just like, anyways, like just a bow. It was like, not like, it's not
You
like
gotta
it was
really
a
think.
gun.
You gotta really think about what's in the background too, because like I started my business right before like the MacMillan Search. I started right before the pandemic, and we were remote by design. We were working with clients out of California at the time, so all interactions were through Zoom. And what was behind you kind of is a bit of your personality, right?
Oh,
like,
people are always looking to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember I had my guitar. I play a little bit of guitar. Like I grew up playing guitar. I had my guitar. I got a mount for the wall because I got tired of the thing on the floor falling over and stuff. And I
Kinda
put it
like
on the
my
wall.
bow.
Yeah, exactly. And it was right behind me. But then everyone would ask me like, "Oh, you're gonna play us a song?" I'm like, "What? Oh, right. There's a guitar back here." No, this isn't a camp.
We're here for work.
We're here, like,
Right.
But I guess it gave you a glimpse into my personality. At one point, I had my I was a hobbyist DJ at one point, and I had turntables in the back. So anything you put there, like maybe it's just like a part of your personality that's kind of separate from work. So you kind of have to segment it or silo it a little bit. Like you got to really think about what's behind you. And I've seen people that have like a bunch of their books, or you could think about it as like from a promo standpoint. And I've never had a good luck with like the auto-generated backgrounds, unless I'm having fun where it's like, I'm in San Francisco, I'm on the beach in Cancun. Like when you're actually just Nova Scotia in January.
I like
and
the
it's
space
horrible.
ones.
No, the space ones are fun. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just calling you from the Mir space station, ISIS space station.
Yeah. Or the moon.
Yeah, just hanging out on the moon today.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a big sci-fi guy, so
sweet.
I like some of that.
Yeah. What are you liking for sci-fi these days? Anything you're watching you enjoy?
What was the jumping? What was that? It was like a dubbed over one, but it was Lost Life in Space. I can't remember.
Okay.
You're putting me on the spot here.
Sorry, yeah. I'm that's not what this podcast was about. I'm supposed to put you on the
I
spot.
was like, I didn't know I had to pull from my sci-fi repertoire, but I like Interstellar.
Okay.
Man, honestly, like people probably think I'm weird. Anything to do with UFOs, I'm into. Too.
Okay.
But yeah, I just always found that interesting.
Star Wars or Star Trek person?
Star Wars.
Okay. So
Star Treks. There's a couple degree like.
It's okay to like
it.
both.
I watched it, and I've watched like the
Yep.
the more modern movies, but like Star Trek to me was like, I'd watch it when there was nothing else on cable, you know.
So when I went to college, the sister program to us was digital animation, and it attracted a lot of the classic sci-fi comic book kids. And when the guy hung out with those kids a lot, I was one of those kids. I love those kids. But that was one of our common questions we'd ask people as we met them early on, and it kind of gave you a gauge of them, of what kind of person they were, because everyone liked sci-fi in this like group of people. There was like maybe 10% that didn't, but we didn't talk to them that much. But everyone else had some sort of, and everyone always had opinion. They could like both, but one always liked one more than the other. And I found the people that liked Star Trek more had this like kind of, it's like a cleaner space.
Okay.
Whereas with Star Wars, if you like Star Wars, it's a little bit dirtier. Like, and by dirty, like it was just,
I got my cards there. So.
Nice. Like, I'm a Star Wars fan because I like space. I remember playing like with my Lego space kits when I was a kid, and like everyone died in the end. It was like really epic things going on, and like only one guy made it out alive. Big, and I'm like 10 years old, kind of like, because it had to be messy to make a really cool story. And I'm not saying people don't die in Star Trek, but Star Trek was kind of this more ideal society that's trying a little bit more cleaner.
Yeah.
So
there wasn't as much violence, and there was, but like. Yeah, I guess I
Kinda
shouldn't
like
speak. I'm not as well versed in Star Trek, but I don't know. There was something about Star Wars. It was just like they're flying around.
It's like a Western in space.
Yeah, lightsabers, duels.
Yeah. It's like the samurai movies and the Westerns kind of
like the good
made
versus
together.
evil,
Yeah.
like, you know,
And
the
there's
Jedi and the dark side.
100%. I think it would tell. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I like sci-fi too. It's nice to hear a story that's kind of exploring ideas, but it's not now.
Yeah. What do you like lately?
I watched Creator a little while ago.
Creator,
which is on Disney. It was an interesting concept. It had some.
I don't have Disney.
Disney, but if you get like the trial, it's worth a watch. It's kind of interesting. It's about like AI basically rises to a certain level, and then there's they end up nuking LA, and then they ban the world kind of splits, and half of them ban AI and the other half embrace it. And then it basically turns into a conflict between these two superpowers, and it's kind of that coming to terms with the people that have adopted AI and embrace it and have like AI beings living with them, amongst them, and then the people that are like completely against them. And it's an interesting concept. My dad watched it and said he enjoyed it, so I was like, all right, I'll put this on. Yeah. I mean, we keep Disney for the kids, and it's got all the Star Wars stuff on it,
right?
Too. So that's kind of a bonus. Where my kids I never would have watched all the Clone War cartoons, but since it's something to do with my kids, we're like on the last season now. It's taken us a few years to get through them all, but it's like it's something I do with my kids and that we bond over, and I enjoy that. But anything on Star Wars, I enjoy that. That movie Creator was really interesting. Trying to think what else. I've been watching Orville, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
It does sound familiar.
Seth, the guy who created Family Guy, basically made this kind of satirical sci-fi show like 12 years ago, kind of taking a stab at Star Trek in a way, but it's taking a stab at all sci-fi in a way.
Right.
And yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. It's a little trippy at times too.
Okay. All right.
If you've had an edible, you might want to watch like what you're watching. Like it
Okay.
might take your brain into a few different spaces you weren't ready for. That's kind of what I've been enjoying a lot. And I've been rewatching stuff I like too with my kids. I don't know if you remember the movie Flight of the Navigator. It's another Disney movie where this kid gets taken into a spaceship that sounds like Pee Wee Herman.
No.
Oh, it's a weird thing. They have all these different aliens on there. And it was, I want to say late 80s. Oh, and he comes back in time. He gets abducted. And then when he comes back, it's like 10, 15 years later or something along those lines. Anyway, interesting concepts. And I think that's what sci-fi always explored things.
Yeah, I kind of went a little beyond like the modern world as we see it.
Yeah. Which was kind of fun. It was fun. Yeah.
I get the ones that crack me up, like in the 90s that were like 2035. There's like
the year 2010.
Right? Yeah. And there's like flying cars and stuff. It's like, you missed
Still waiting for the hoverboards from Back to the Future too.
Right.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, that's an original.
Yeah.
Man. But jumping back to it,
yeah.
What do you feel is like the most benefit like for a business in terms of SEO? Like where do you find like the biggest influence for your services can be applied, and or are there areas where they're really struggling with where you feel like, you know, do you usually get businesses that are having an issue that you can immediately see a resolve for with your service, or are there struggles that you generally see come up frequently, or is it all case by case?
It's a little bit case by case, but I will say there's a lot of companies that think they need SEO and they don't really.
Right.
Or it's not the best place to put their money. If they're like an early stage company and they're raising money, and they've got some marketing budget to spend, I'd almost recommend they just keep writing content with some like SEO best practices, but I don't think they would need like a full-time SEO person in there. And I would base that content on especially if they're a newer company, on the kind of questions their BDR, their sales team is hearing on a regular basis. And even get the salespeople involved in that content, or talk to their existing customers to find out the questions that led them to the product, and then create that content around that with best practices in mind, and kind of think of SEO as almost an afterthought. Like we're taking the best practices to create something that should rank, but we're not thinking about it from a keyword standpoint. And then we're going back to look at it in a month or a few months down the road to see what is it actually ranking for. And then they try to optimize that way. There's so many incumbent players when it comes to SEO. If you're in a space that's already been kind of dominated by somebody, they're going to have all this brand, I'll say brand equity for lack of a better term, but this authority already built that you've got an uphill battle. So when companies come to me and they're a little bit earlier stage, I almost say like you should throw some money at paid ads for now, because you don't have to get into a position. You pay for your position, and you can easily balance what you put in versus what you get out, and pull those levers until it makes sense. And then when you've got about a quarter's worth of data, or I mean, in an ideal world, when you got a year's worth of data, I like to go back and look at that data and say, okay, this is what's performing for you from a paid standpoint. What do we have for organic counterpoints? And organic is what SEO is trying to create. Like it's organic search. So what do we have that's performing for organic? If we don't have something, let's get something created, because we know it performs from a paid standpoint. We know people that search that keyword and click on the paid ad. You pay for that click, but they've converted into more money. So we know that it performs. Now let's throw some marketing dollars behind this, and it's a longer horizon until they see the return. Now, if you're a little bit more established, then it's a great time. If you've been running paid ads for a year and you haven't put a lot of effort into SEO, or if you have a wealth of content and you don't know why something's not performing, then that's a great time to invest into somebody like myself who can dig into it and go, okay, this is what's performing. This is where we see an opportunity. This is what is on the cusp of performing. If we could tweak a few little things, we'll get things out there. So if you were to take this back for like more like smaller businesses, service operator, like people that are offering services, I would try to create content that answers the questions you hear on a regular basis when you're selling your product, or when you're talking to somebody about what you do, or you're selling your service. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway. Like if you think about SEO, and when I used to interview, when we were hiring at the agency, my favorite question was, explain SEO to my 96-year-old grandmother, because it's a complicated subject, but you can kind of drill it down to like it's what influences what shows up in the search results when somebody asks it a question. And that question might not be structured like a proper question. Like I think Google searches are getting people are getting better at searching where they're actually asking proper questions. But if you were like, I had a craving for a milkshake on the way over here. So like, as I looked up the directions, like milkshake Halifax, like I'm not going to say that to somebody, but if somebody asked me, where's the best milkshake in Halifax? That's the that's the content you would create if you were trying to sell that product.
Right.
Or if you're selling like something on the periphery of that as well. That's the other thing I find people will tap out on talking about their product. Then they got to start looking at the periphery of their product. What's related to what you do? If you sell, let's say you sell a proposal software, like what kind of questions do people ask during so they can better understand their sales process before they get to the actual proposal part, and that kind of content can resonate with your ideal customer. And that's kind of the TLDR of like how I would approach SEO.
Nice.
Yeah.
So essentially, if I was to like recap it in my own words, SEO is essentially a way to get in front of people asking specific questions to do with the solution your product of your company provides.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you need some data to run with. So like you say, like initially you need to just make the content and get it out there.
Yeah.
And then you have a look at how it's performing and ranking, and then you can adjust. And or if you're at the point where it merits hiring somebody like yourself, then you engage your company and you kind of get to work on getting where they need to be in that SEO kind of sphere. Yeah.
And that content doesn't have to always be blog content too. Like we're working with a client right now that's got 100 plus podcasts. So it's like we're sifting through these. They've created 10 pieces of content ish around that podcast information, but there's so much more there to dig through. So they've created content. It's just not in a way that's easily digestible by Google at this point. Like the transcriptions, they have it all on YouTube, so the transcriptions are there, but that's benefiting more the traffic to the YouTube channel than it is their own website. So we're sifting through that content, what they've already created, which we're discovering what's resonating with people and what's turning into traffic and what's sitting not quite in a position where like we're getting eyeballs on it, but it's not converting. We're not getting those click-throughs. How can we get them up into a higher position so we can get more click-throughs so it actually turns into qualified traffic?
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's kind of, there's all these technical things. If you pay somebody to do SEO, or you get like somebody offering, never answer to those emails that are.
I get million. There's a guy I gotta block him. He's just like on me. Hey bro, your SEO. You basically tell him my SEO sucks on YouTube. Which, fair enough, probably does. I've just been working like in the last like month looking at it harder.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you can hire me and like I'll do all this stuff and you'll get more views, more subs. And he's just like sending me screenshots of like some random person I don't know that he's probably worked with. And, like, their sub count and their view count. And then another like arrow to the next image and like showing that it's grown.
Yeah.
He's just like, all like, man, I gotta give him credit. He's persistent. Every day. Hey, are you available now? Like,
yeah,
he's not even local. I was like, yeah, let's meet up for coffee and tell me what's up.
Right.
And he's like, oh no, he's like in India or something.
Right.
And yeah, every day somebody's calling SEO this, get more leads for this. You know, oh man, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But it goes back to like my information's everywhere. Well, it's on realtor.ca, it's on the remax.ca, it's on every profile.
They can scrape that really easily too and get all your contact info, and then you're getting text messages, and they'll find every way to get in. Yeah, get a hold of you.
I even got a call from somebody from Century 21, like another brokerage,
right?
Asking if I wanted to open a brokerage for them here. I was like, man, like no,
yeah,
like I'm just getting this figured out, and like I'm just focusing on growing it. Like I don't need to like I'm not the guy you need.
Right.
I don't even know why my name's on that list.
Did they just ping everybody at
Wow, they
Remax
must have
and
just
say-
pulled the whole like agent list
Yeah.
or something and just like started calling.
somebody's gonna say yes? Somebody's gotta say yes.
Yeah,
It's like the
right.
numbers game. It's like the machine gun and I hate to use the war analogies, but whatever. It's a machine gun versus the sniper approach. It's like the sniper, you're very pinpointed on something specific. Like,
Yeah, but how long does it take you to get it?
it's gonna take you a while to get there,
Right.
right? And that's why, like I was saying, like the best way for me to sell my services is referrals. Because if somebody's worked with me and they're happy with working with me, then it's easier for me to sell the product. But they're getting like selling SEO as just like DMs never happens for me. Like
No.
if I get people trying to sell me SEO services is really fun. Sometimes I'll egg them on for a little bit to see kind of what comes back. And like you
Yes.
didn't do your research. Like look at the website. What do I sell? Why would I sell? Why would I want SEO services for my? You've definitely done the pray and spray kind of approach
Yeah,
to
100%.
to lead generation. And maybe that turns in like maybe if you hit up 100 people and you get 10 interviews and one of them turns into a paying customer, it was worth it. But I've never seen. I would recommend nobody goes for those types of SEO services. For one thing, it's probably not going to work. It's going to be some formulaic process that they run you through because they need to make it. They need to have good profit margins. If it's too cheap, you get what you pay for, and they have to keep their profit margins pretty decent too. So it's going to be, if it's really cheap, they're going to really cheap out on doing it, even if the cost of living is cheaper in some place like India or the Philippines where they can get people for a lot cheaper to do work. Is that work going to be really going to push things, especially when you're dealing in a local space? Like it's more about like Google My Business is really powerful for brick and mortar businesses. If you're a brick and mortar business and somebody can't find you when they're doing map directions, or if they search your name and if you look at your phone and search the restaurant, let's say, if their Google My Business doesn't show up at the top, like that's what, if I search restaurants in Sackville right now, it's going to be a bunch of Google My Business on my phone. There's no room for anything else.
No.
And the top three, it's going to be based on location a little bit, like how close am I to, let's say, what's the like Tom's versus
Freeman's.
yeah, like they're all kind of in that same area,
They're
right?
right across the road almost.
Versus if I was in Bedford and I was looking up next to the Chicken Burger, like I'm going to get a different result for restaurants depending on where I'm at, right? Anyway, if you're a brick and mortar business and you don't have your Google My Business set up, definitely get your Google My Business set up. But just think about the kind of questions people ask, and also think of like what the effort is. That I have to put in, and what's the return I'm going to get from this. So try a couple little experiments, like throw some content against the wall. If you're creating content like this, podcasts, I mean, this is maybe not 100% real estate. We've talked a little bit about real estate. Like, can you feed that transcription into a tool and pull out all the details about real estate, or what's, and it's a little bit easier for somebody like me where all my calls are on Zoom.
Right.
So I can transcribe them all and let everyone know, hey, we got a transcription button here. We just use it internally. If there's anything that I mention I'll definitely run it by you before I publish anything. But I've got that wealth of information. It's almost too much information to go back and sift through. It's like with that client that's got 100 podcasts, like where do I start with processing 100 transcriptions? Like that's a lot of information for a custom GPT. Like, and my Python skills aren't big enough that I'm, writing this tool that does it for me and goes in and does all the processing for me kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That was a
so
rant.
So the idea is then you just really got to make the content and think about like who you're making it for.
Yes.
And like, really do some work around like lining things up.
And I think that's very universal. And like, pay attention to when you're talking to your customers, what kind of questions do they ask? What's important to them during this process? What do I hear all the time? How can I solve that answer online? And even if it doesn't directly lead to a sale, when they're asking that question and they see your answer, you're going to have your logo is going to be there. There's an additional brand association to what you're to you answering that question for them. It's harder to attribute that, saying, okay, they looked at my blog post about I don't know, real estate and what neighborhoods in Sackville are the best for kids or something like that. And I'm not saying to write a piece of content on that. That's unresearched. I'm just trying to pull ideas out of the top of my head. Something they might read and they're not ready to move here yet or start looking into a house here, but then they start looking into a house here. 6 months down the road, they see your name and something else. Like, oh, even if they don't consciously realize that, there's a subconscious thing where
there's some connection.
Yeah, there's a trust piece to that because you've given them some free advice through your website, which took you some time to build it. But other than hosting it and having it up there, it doesn't take anything once it's built. Maybe a little bit of monitoring to see, oh, is this piece of content performing? Are we getting traffic for it? Are people showing up? Are they sticking around on the webpage? Do I need to refine this? Is it at a date? The school that I talked about in this place doesn't exist anymore. So, let's update this to what's around this neighborhood now, or where a better neighborhood option might be. Pulling some ideas kind of out the top of my head, but yeah, it's kind of the way I would think about SEO and position it for somebody else. When I first started selling SEO on my own, I almost would take any kind of work that would come my way, or at least start exploring it. And I look back, I'm like, I don't know if every one of these people actually really needed SEO, or we could return the effort, or have the ROI that they were, they expected.
Favorably looking for, yeah.
Yeah. So you got to throw money into, and it's not like ads where you're putting money into the position of where it's at. It's okay. You got to put money into the research into why it's performing or why it's not, or where the opportunities lie. And then as well as the plan to fill that gap. And then at some point, some execution too, be it the person you paid for it to do it, or some third party that you're paying to do the execution. And then there's probably a review process in there. So it's a lot more involved than than just putting something out. It's sort of like, okay, if I think of SEO as kind of like I might need an architect or an engineer to look at a building versus like, I know there's a problem here. There's a leak in my pipe. I'm going to hire a plumber for an afternoon, versus getting an architect to come in and explore the way we use this home and how, like, or where the opportunities lie in this house to increase some functionality to it.
You just need somebody to fix the leak sometime.
Yeah, sometimes you just need somebody to fix a leak. Sometimes you need somebody to come in and reevaluate how you process this whole space and how to use it.
Right.
And that's kind of where I see a lot of our services. Now, sometimes there's specific problems that we've been brought in to take a look at. Like, we've inherited this massive directory of pages. We want to know what we can do to tweak it to get it to perform better. And that could lead to more work, because if there's a big problem like that on a bigger site, there's a lot bigger site as well. So you can get that problem solved, or at least some direction or a plan to understand how to solve that problem, or stay on top of it at least. Now we can move on to other things.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a great place to kind of put a pin in it, man. I got a couple of things I got to get to. It's crazy. We've already been an hour, 33 minutes.
Oh, cool. Nice.
But I really enjoyed this. I really appreciate you coming out. SEO and just like marketing and content in general are super important, at least for me. Hopefully people have kind of taken something from this as well. And yeah, if they have any questions, where's the best place that they could find you?
Sure. MacMillanSearch.com is my website. That's MacMillan, M-A-C. We're in Nova Scotia, so there's a lot of Mics and Macs.
Yeah, there is.
And I also I host a quarterly meetup at Volta in downtown Halifax. We take over one of their boardrooms for 2 hours. There's usually some presentations on SEO. It's kind of a open, like, there'll be a couple presentations and then just like an open floor of like, ask me some questions, or we'll have other experts in the room as well where you can come in and ask your SEO questions.
This is a free resource?
I believe it's free for Volta members. I've asked that anybody who signs up can come in. At this point, it's free, to the best of my knowledge. I don't think you have to be a member for that particular thing. So it gives you a chance to
check out I could sign up and like come pick some brains about SEO.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might even be interested in that.
Totally, man.
Let me know.
Yeah, I push it around on my LinkedIn profile. So Michael MacMillan on LinkedIn. I'm not as active as I should be. I'm trying to get more active, but I'm also noticing so much noise out there that I don't want to add to the noise. I want to be something unique, and that unfortunately makes it hard for me to actually move forward with something because I don't want to add to the noise, but then I'm not doing anything. So
right.
I gotta find my voice on LinkedIn, and I still haven't found that yet. So
hey, well, keep trying.
Yeah, exactly. I'll always keep moving forward.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming, and we'll have you on again once we got some more material to dig into.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
All right, man. Have a great one.
You too.